Hello everybody. Today is finally the day. I have been preluding to this video for about a month. It is the Biting Crush video. In this video, I'm going to attempt to argue my point as to why more cards like Biting Crush should exist in the Digimon TCG and actually just become more of the norm and not so much what we have today in other terms of interaction. Now, I do want to preface a few things before we get going. The first thing is that there are other cards, like Biting Crush, that we'll talk about in this video. Don't worry. Second of all, most of the stuff I do on this channel is purely objective, with a little bit of degree of uncertainty or subjectivity. Like, for example, if Bandai does something good, we celebrate. That's objective. If Bandai does something bad, we burn them alive. Also based on objective fact. Market watches, when you have a ratio as good as mine when it comes to buying and selling and providing unofficial advice, yeah, the stuff I say is pretty much objectively true or whatever. So, there's a lot of stuff on this channel that is simply the truth or very close to the truth within a degree of maybe a little bit of wishy-washiness. However, this video, besides going into the things that already exist, this is purely my opinion. This is purely subjective. I'm just going to try making a point, and this is where it gets interesting. I want you guys in the comment section to tell me what you think, or what your opinions on. Yeah, you can say you agree or disagree, that's fine. But what are your opinions on this topic? Do you think that more things like Biting Crush would be good? Do you think more aces would be good? Well, and explain why in the comments. I look forward to some interesting conversation on this topic. So let's get going here. And first of all, explain what Biting Crush is. And by the way, if you want to see more stuff like this, you should definitely like the video and comment and tell me that. And you should subscribe and turn on the notification bell on those mashed potatoes. That way you know when all these Digimon videos do go live. So what does Biting Crush do? Biting Crush is an 8-cost purple option that says, by trashing a card in your hand, delete when your opponent has level 6 level Digimon. If it trashes a 7th grade Demon Lord trait, place this card in the battle area. Cool. That's a nice little card for 8, that's fine, but what we really care about is the rest of the text now. The all turns, when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, delay, you may play a Leviamon from your trash without paying the cost. So, what's really cool about it is if the X happens, Y happens as a result, or Y may happen as a result, and then Z will be outputted. And what is Z? You play the Leviathan in this case from your trash. And this card on play, if you want as many more Digimon and Tamers as you, delete one opponent's highest level Digimon, then delete one opponent's lowest level Digimon. Then all turns, when opponent's Digimon is deleted, gain memory for each Digimon deleted. So effectively, what this card does is when when you play an opponent's Digimon, or sorry, when an effect plays an opponent's Digimon, you may, that's a key piece, you may play a Leviathan from your trash without paying the cost. And if you do, you might get a full 2 memory from it, plus whatever else might get deleted on your opponent's turn. Very cool piece. We'll get back to the may part later in this video, but it's coming. Don't you worry. It's a very powerful text. You may. Now, I mentioned that there are other cards that operate similarly to Biting Crush. Well, there are. There's things like Return to the Primogenitor. Again, we only care about the delay part of this. So all turns, when your Digimon with the free trait would be deleted other than by one of your own effects, delay. By digivolving that Digimon to a Digimon with Imperial in its aim or hand, without paying the cost, prevent the deletion. So again, this is another similar thing, right? If X condition is met, X being when you're free would be deleted by other effects. Y happens. Y being you evolve into an Imperial Digimon card for free to prevent that. And then there might also be a Z where your Imperial that you evolve into might have a window dwelling effect. That could be an interruption and stuff. Little gross card because it's also an HPD, so the card is very strong. A little bit too strong, but exists. Then you have things like Wicked God Descends. This is basically kind of the same thing. Sort of. The all turns effect says when any of your Digimon with the Millennium Mon in their names would leave the battle area. Delay. The delay is you may play a Wicked God trait Digimon with a play cost 1 higher than the Digimon from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Okay. Plays a Wicked God for you. So, not bad. Not bad. Then you have, like, Unleash the Dragon Gene. When any of your Digimon with Dracomon or Examon in their texts would leave the battle area, other than in battle, delay. 2 of your Digimon may DNA Digivolve into Examon in the hand. Cool, okay. And then we also have in the same set that came out in it, the Apostle of Doom descends. When any of your Dexter or Goromon will leave the battle area, delay. By returning 1 Doromon from those Digimon's digital cards to the hand, you may play Death Examon from your trash. Right? It gives you a little bit of source recursion. You play a Death Examon. And we all know what Death Examon does, except for the new one. No one knows what that card does. But the old one's still, kind of sort of relevant, right? And then we are getting a new one. The starter decks are out. All turns, when any level 5 or higher Digimon will leave the battle area, delay. You may play a level 5 or lower Digimon card with Adventure trait from your hand paying the cost. This one's a little more interesting because there are a lot of level 5 Adventure cards that are good, that do good things on play. So this one's going to be a little bit strong, but that's pretty good. Like, it's just, like, when any level 5 or higher Digimon would leave the battle area, delay. It's not by other than your own effects, it's not other than battle, it's just would leave the battle area. It's just, that's a little bit strong. It's a little bit strong. But yeah, this is all we really got right now in terms of delay things, right? It's not bad. So, nice little interactions here. You meet the X condition, you do the Y, which is you play the new guy or evolve the new guy or whatever, and then there's probably a Z where, like, the card you play out will do a thing on play or whatever when it resolves. So that's how these cards work. I will tell you why we need more Binding Crushes in a second, but I think it's fair to assume that we do not have only these forms of interaction in the game, right? I think it's important to go back a little bit in time to see what else we have that is interaction-based. And when the first starter deck came out, we got things like Gaia Force. Now, I'm not going to count this as intentional interaction because this is just a card in security. If it happens, that's great. It gets a little bit different because there are cards like BT13 Cantorasmon that can play things in security, and then that card in security might do a thing that your opponent has to interact with. That's a little bit different, but we're not counting random, just, it's a security. That's great at the point where this came out in the game. Not really a thing. It's just, if it happens, it happens. I think the first piece of intentional interaction came out in BT5, which was Omnidex Antibody. With the opponent's turn, when your opponent's Digimon attacks, you may trash 2 of this Digimon's digital cards to end the attack. That was a really neat piece of interaction that came out when it did. I remember using that card a lot to negate a lot of attacks, and it was very good. So this is a really, really cool interaction source, right? And before Aces even came out, they tried to splash in the odd other piece here and there. Not really that good. Like, for example, Dynarexmon from BT9. All turns once per turn, when opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less becomes suspended, you may delete that Digimon. Not really that good. Not that great. Really easy to play around. Barely counts as interaction. Does it exist? Yes, it does. But really, nah. So, the other now, the main #1 source of interaction now in this game, the direction that Bandai has decided to go in, is Aces. These cards that can Digivolve on your opponent's turn when they declare an attack and do a thing or something. And to be fair, they started out pretty moderately. Like Wargreymon Ace, the first one, had just blocker, and all turns when the cards are moved from security stack and may unsuspend this Digimon. In tandem with like Greymon X Inheritables, not too bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. But if you guys remember, way back in the day, when Aces were revealed as the thing that was happening, I told you guys, this is a very slippery slope. It's going to get very bad. It's not going to be nice. It's not going to be pretty. Well, I mean, let's compare with the new Wargame on Ace that's coming out, right? Instead of blocker and all turns on suspend, when security is removed, you get a on play when it's evolving until your opponent's turn ends. For every 2 color your tamers have, their Digimon effects, the effect with your Digimon. So a little bit of immunity, cool. And then when Digimon attacking, delete one opponent's lowest DP Digimon. It's not once per turn when attacking either, by the way. Matters. So way stronger, right? And to those of you that say, but blocker, you're going to have blocker inheritables if you evolve this card. And if you don't, you probably don't care. Because the main problem with aces is that they have cheap play costs and you can play them. And especially the adventure ones, like you can play them for basically a discount, which is strong. I'll tell you from testing. It's pretty annoying. So we'll get back to aces here in a second, but you have to understand, like, the power creep is there. You can literally read the power creep 2 years apart. You don't need me to tell you that aces now, comparatively to then, are, like, not better. Like, hello? Like, they're just infinitely better. It's crazy. Then, you know, during the course of aces, they introduced these DNA Digivolve aces, which have a bit of a higher, like, more complicated requirements. But when they get off, let me tell you, raid, reboot, trash an opponent's card from security, unaffected by opponent's effects to the end of their turn, DNA Digivolving, DNA Digivolve 1, their opponent's Digimon, delete one of their Digimon. Like, everything. Like, this card does everything. Do I need to show you guys Examon Ace? Well, I'm not going to do that. That card has like 1 million keywords on it. So, that's insane. But, compared to what exists today in other forms of aces, right? This one's coming at BT21. Reboot and blocker, I'll play when Digivolving, Digivolve 2 something, and then return when suspended Digimon to the bottom of the deck. This card could effectively be a 2-for-1. Because you could Digivolve 2 on something else, that's attacking maybe, and then you bounce something else away, and then you block that Digimon that's attacking. You get 2 cards for 1 thing, which is really strong. And then we're also getting this card, Dr. Ace, which is an LM card, but has Scapegoat, because why not? And then on play with Digivolve, you Digivolve 1, your opponent's Digimon, then delete all opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost, which could become incredibly relevant. Could be really good against certain decks. And then just for fun, you know, collision inheritable, because, you know, why not throw that in there, you know? So, you look at these aces, right? You think that these have a lot of good effects. Are they balanced somehow? Well, the unobserved eye will tell you they have these things called overflow. If they leave from the battle area, you'll lose memory. So, a good trade-off, right? 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 No, it's really not. let me tell you, the amount of value nowadays with today's aces that you get make up for the fact that they have an overflow. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They do not care about their overflow. Let me tell you, if you can even get rid of their aces in the first place. You know, it's just mind-boggling. You know, when the aces first came out, yeah, the overflow was a little more stronger because the game wasn't as crazy as it is now. But the overflow has stayed the same. You know, level 6s 2 years ago, level 6 aces 2 years ago had overflow 4. And we still have overflow 4, but on a much stronger, much more powerful body that you only have to use as interaction, you can just play. And the gimmick with aces, right? Aces are like the weirdest form of interaction ever, because you can only do it evolve when you battle, right? Which means 3 things will happen. Let's say that I'm fighting you, and you have a guy that you want to turn into an ace. Well, one of 3 things is going to happen. Either, first of all, I'm going to remove the body that could turn into the ace and not care, so they're useless. 2, I'm going to bait out your ace by doing something, and then I'm going to punish you for it. And then number 3, the nuclear option here. If I have to go swinging because the game is so like that your board is so powerful right now that my only shot at winning the game is just to try and get in damage. And if you have the ace at that point, I'm going to lose anyway. So, like, aces to skilled players don't do much until they get OP and broken. Like, kind of this guy. OP and broken. Just completely cracked without any semblance of interactability from the opponent. So, this leads us back to the original topic. Why do I vouch for more Biting Crush cards like this? Why? You kind of got to remember here, the aces follow a similar flow to the X, Y, Z of delay options, right? The X is the opponent attacks, the Y is you evolve and do the thing with the thing you evolve. That's your Z. It operates in a similar way, but it doesn't, because you can only do that when you attack. These these delay options have different kinds of requirements. This one requires an effective playing opponent's Digimon. This one requires your free trait to be deleted by something other than your own effects. This one says would leave the battle area. This one says other than battle, and this one would remove other than battle. And this one says would leave the battle area again. You'll notice a theme, right? These four only work when something is going to be removed from the battle area. This is different. This is its own thing. There's nothing quite like this in the sense that it does not have a, if you're going to blow up my guy, let me do something about it. This is just, and if an effect plays an opponent's Digimon. Right? Now, there's always some in-art type stuff you can do with this. For example, if you use one of your own effects to play one of your opponent's Digimon from the trash, you can trigger the Biting Crush, print the Leviathan, punish them. We all know that. That's fine. But, like, having this card on the board is just like an obstacle that an opponent has to deal with. Unless they play one of the very few cards that exist that blow up delay options. Not a big thing right now, not pretty common. So, an opponent has to consider Biting Crush when they are doing their thing. Let me tell you something. B21 and the starter decks introduce a whole slew of cards that can play cards by effect, making a card like Biting Crush have a higher premium, because now more decks in the meta have to play around a Biting Crush, should you choose to play, Biting Crush and the Leviathan in your deck. Like, your opponent will have to think about it. It's not like an ace that they can just get rid of the card before it turns into an ace, making it useless. No, they have to actually, the only way to deal with it, unless they play one of those niche option removal cards, is they have to bait it, or they have to find a way to play around it by maybe altering their deck's strategy on the fly to deal the Biting Crush. That's cool. That is interaction. That is brain activity happening. Because you can't just ignore this card if you're playing a strategy that Biting Crush stops. You can't. So you have to think about it from a deck building perspective. Yeah, everyone plays aces. Everyone plays cards that can deal with the card before it turns into the ace. That's fine. But not every deck can sort of kind of deal with Biting Crush. Right? And the you may part is critical. Because you don't have to play the Leviathan. You don't have to. You just don't have to. You can save it for a rainy day if you want to. Which is really funny. Now, again, similar to the ace thing, if you bait out the Biting Crush, then pop the Leviathan after the fact, sure, good. But it's not the same, because there's not even a negative interaction for that. There's no overflow, right? You just have to deal with it. You have to deal, like, if you choose to deal with it, you're not going to get rewarded for doing so. That is balance. This card in tandem with Leviamon, obviously, is one of the most balanced pieces of interaction in card games. Period. That is my opinion. Because of just the way it makes your opponent play the game and what it does when Leviamon comes out. And I strive and want more cards like this. Yes, we still have other delay options, but they're all like, you know, your guy leaves. By the way, we have other delay options in the game that like are strategy synergies, like Ragnarok Cannon. They're not intended for deletion prevention. They're actually not intended for interactive game states at all. They just do a thing when you do your thing. Not when your opponent is trying to do a thing, you can interact with your opponent. That's different. So we need more stuff like this. Like, for example, when an effect digivolves, delay, do a thing. Or like when an opponent searches from the top of their deck, delay, do a thing. You know, I hate hand traps. I hate aces. But if we're going to move away from aces, we need more cards that can do more things like this. That's my piece. I think this card is very well designed. Very good piece of interaction. Unfortunately, I don't think this video will make any difference whatsoever. That's the sad part, because Bandai Digimon loves their aces, and they keep coming, and they keep coming. But we can hope that a card like this slips through the cracks at some point, and provides some really good interaction between two players sitting across the table from each other, instead of the shit fest we're in right now, which is just, let me blow you up, and you can't interact with me. What do you guys think about today's video? I'm not necessarily saying that aces have to go. I would love for them to go, personally speaking, but this is like a necessary evil to deal with. They're not going anywhere. I would rather they don't exist, but we don't have that option, right? My opinion is just simple. Give us more cards like this, because the interaction behind them is really good. Alright, that's enough for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later. Bye!